Welcome. I'm Sue Landay. This is Show and Share from Trainer's Warehouse, and we're joined today by John Riordan, who I met, I guess, just about a year ago at last year's
Yeah.
ATD conference in DC. And we've done a couple of show and shares together. Um, we first, the first, sorry, I'm getting my pictures squared away in my, where am I? There we go. Um, so the first product that John introduced with us had these blue, red, and yellow glasses called the Power of Perception, and great tool to kind of put yourself in other people's shoes. And John recently introduced us to another tool that he's developed, initially called intentional collaboration, being intentional about how you collaborate, which you've kind of renamed into the Collaboration Lab. And I'm delighted to have you here today, John, to share that with us.
Yeah,
So please take it away.
absolutely. Thanks, Sue. It's so funny. I don't know if it occurred to you because you do this all the time. As we were working on this, I thought, well, welcome to collaboration because Sue took the product and looked at it, reviewed it with her team. She's like, you could do this. What about the name? Make it a little more engaging. And I thought, this is what collaboration is. It's like the risk of handing my stuff to you and you have an opinion and I'm giving you permission to speak to it. Like it's yeah,
Scary.
right. And that's what emerged, and that's what led to this particular, I call it an activity or training approach, is the distinction between, there's collaboration at the right time in the right place in the right way. But there's something else called death by collaboration. And that's when it's like, well, when should we start the meeting? Well, what do you think, Nora? What do you think, Renee? Well, I don't know. Well, Paul is in Uganda and Leia's in and Nora is out west. So it's like, oh my gosh, somebody make a decision. like
That sounds like the camel is a horse built by committee,
yeah, exactly. So
right? Something like that.
there's a right time and a right place, and then an optimal approach to use collaboration. But the distinction that I would like to say that sets this activity apart is that intentionality and then the process. So I'll screen share a couple slides just to kind of give you the idea. The setup is that specifically every participant gets their workbook, their divider, and their unique set of Legos. So they get their new packaged bag of Legos of their particular color set. Some people get some Lego people, some people get some Lego wheels, but they're all working behind dividers, and so they don't know what each other has. Now, your first assignment is build something that is useful to you on your own, alone, get started. And what's awesome is the entire room, and I've done this with 200 people in a ballroom, silence. And you get 200 people there, and all you hear is clickety, click, 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 clickety, click. And people are head down, right? The divider keeps them private, and everybody, and the energy and the focus and the flow, and it's like palpable.
Yeah,
And
we tried it at Trainer's Warehouse and had the same thing. And we just like,
yeah.
we had something to make and boom, we did it.
And you can physically feel it. And then as a facilitator, I go around and say, hey, Sue, what do you notice? And she goes, wow, it's so quiet. And everybody, and you just see this energy. And you realize there is a time and a place. Isolation gets a bad name because obviously there's a downside. But if you've ever been in the zone and been really highly productive, and then you pick your head up and you realize, wow, like the time is flying, there are benefits to working, especially in today's world, without the distraction, without the interruption, and getting, engaged and getting it done. And so that first round, the conversation is what are the pros and cons of working in isolation when you can focus and you can get into the flow and you can be productive, et cetera. Obviously, the downside of limited resources, limited ideas, right? You don't know what each other's doing. So the physical representation of the barrier sets it up so everyone's just working on their own thing with whatever resources they have. All right, that's round one. Round two moves into cooperating with your neighbor, not yet full-blown cooperation. So the barrier's there, but now we can talk. We're each making our own thing. Sue, what are you making? Well, I'm making this. And John, what are you making? Well, oh, you have wheels. I don't have any wheels. Can I borrow some
You
wheels?
can look over the barriers now.
Yeah,
You
round
kind of
two.
have permission to peek.
Yeah, and now we can help each other, but we're still working on our own thing. The shift here, and I can go back to any of this if folks want down and in a little more, but the critical shift here, we still have separate goals. Now I can start to use some of your resources if you'll let me, and vice versa. You can offer me some ideas, but I may or may not accept those ideas. That's up to me. I'm still working on my own thing, and you're working on your own thing. We're cooperating, but not yet full-blown collaboration. That distinction, that progression is what I see as sets this apart. We talk a lot about collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. It's like time out. There are different levels of engagement, and that distinction is important because there's pros and cons to this level. One of the most critical ones being accountability. I'm making my own thing. This isn't Sue's thing. I don't have to take her ideas. I can if I want to, right? But it's my project. I'm accountable for it. Now, the
So
converse is,
you get ownership there, you've got
yeah,
proprietary,
yeah,
and probably also like different styles. Like there are probably people who feel more comfortable collaborating. My husband is an author, and the idea of that because it's his name on a
yeah.
piece of fiction is like, whoa, you know, really
Perfect.
different.
Yeah, perfect example, Sue, of full-blown collaboration. So when you get to round three, and again, this can be done in an icebreaker really quickly, or it can be done in a 4 hour, I call it a 6 hour in-depth application workshop. Is okay, like let's really talk about this full-blown collaboration. Do you really want to collaborate? Because what that means is we're pulling away the dividers and we're moving our Legos into the middle of the table.
So what do you say? How do you set up round three, John? What
Yeah.
are you saying to people as you're facilitating this?
Yeah, round three. So round two, round one, round two. Now, round three, folks, we're going to go to full-blown collaboration. And I want you to feel this. I want you to recognize the emotion, watch the physicalness of this. Number one, you're going to remove the barriers. So take those barriers, take them off the table. All of a sudden, you're seeing what everyone else is working on. And there's this aha moment of like, oh, what are you doing over there, Renee? Oh my gosh, Mara, that's amazing. What is that? What is this? You have wheels? I don't have any wheels. You have people? I don't have people. The resources are not distributed
Do
equally.
you,
They're
and
like,
I imagine there could also be feelings of, kind of, oh, this is all I made, sort of self-consciousness. So do
absolutely.
you debrief before you even start the next? I'll let
Depending,
you, sorry, I
no,
interrupted you.
no, that's great. And this is the real world. Depending on the depth. So there's a facilitator's guide that we have, and we've got a sample agenda for everything from a 30-minute icebreaker, a 2 hour, concise session, a 4 hour is what I would call the standard, because there's a lot to these layers. And a 6 hour is what we call the in-depth application, where you're taking real work and saying, okay, how are we going to collaborate on this project? And what are the ground rules? And what are the operating agreements? And, so you're really doing an in-depth application. But that moment of truth that you're describing, there's this moment when you pull, first of all, what are the barriers in your organization?
Okay, so hold on. I think I interrupted you at a bad time. Forgive me. The instructions that you give for round three,
Yep.
are to remove the barrier
Move the
and what?
barriers. Move your Legos to the middle if you're willing, unless you just want to keep yours to yourself.
Okay.
So,
Are you dismantling? Are you dismantling what you've already created?
isn't that a great question? Nora, I would like you to dismantle your thing, but I want to keep mine. the way it
Oh, whoa, 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 buddy. No, 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 no.
Okay,
but
but hold on, hold on. The instructions, time out, everybody. The instructions
the
are
instructions are
move your pieces to the middle if you wish.
the assignment is to create something useful to everyone. So you started with something useful to you. And while I'm thinking, well, I could really use this. I could really use a pen holder. I could use another mug. I can, whatever. I'm making something useful to me. Collaboration now is it's going to be useful to everyone and it shifts the mentality. But Nora, you are dead on. Every time we do this, somebody's like, I don't want to take my thing apart. I like my idea. Yeah, ownership. We're shifting. It's not my idea and Nora's idea and Paul's idea. This is now going to be our idea. And if we don't make that shift, we're not collaborating. Does that make sense? We're holding those barriers. We can't see them, but they're still there. I don't want you to touch my Legos. I don't want you getting into my business. And it's palpable. That dismantling, adjusting new ideas, and then classic collaboration. How are we going to make decisions? How are we going to make choices? Who's going to be accountable? Right? When we say, okay, Renee, we'll do what Renee is suggesting, and then at the end, and it doesn't really work. Well, it was Renee's idea. That didn't work, but after all, right? Hey, that's not collaboration. Collaboration is we're taking shared ownership and shared accountability and right. And now the physical process, and that let me just screen share that last shot because that is the point. If I can find it, where's the sharing?
So, and while you're looking, just to go back, you said that there you can do this for longer periods of time or shorter. And so your facilitation notes are going to say like how many minutes to spend on round one, how many to spend on round two, how many to spend on round three, and include debrief notes, conversation notes for each of those different rounds.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of topics that can come up, and we do have a list of those that we can share. But yeah, John, now that you have this list, it's really striking visually, right?
Yeah.
When people
And
come together.
yeah, and Sue and I were talking about this. The big distinction here is you start with separate colors. But physically now, when you're in cooperation, you see some change of colors and some exchange. But now in collaboration, you're going to see all the colors showing up. And so everybody can see their contribution literally. And so the blue came from someone's resources, the people from someone, the green, the yellow, the white. And so now you're looking at that final product. And one of the key questions, can everyone see their contribution? And it doesn't mean it's even, doesn't mean it's equal. We're not doing math on the Legos, but you can literally see that we've all contributed to what we have created. And now it's the conversation about accountability, about shared ownership, about pride and the upside of like, wow. And then the great question, what you finished with, did anyone imagine what you'd come up with? Like, did anyone, and you realize, yeah, when we were working isolation, I was working as what was important to me. And here we have this collaborative thing that has emerged. And I can tell you what people come up with never ceases to astound me. And they say, yeah, no, I would never have thought of this just on my own, right behind my barrier. And so it's a physical experience of the progression, but acknowledging the value of each stage. There is a time to close my door, lock the door, turn off my email, and be focused and uninterrupted. And then there's a time to cooperate and exchange. And then there's a time to full blown, all the Legos in the middle. Let's do this together. And then that leads in the longer process, leads to that, conversation. What are the agreements we can make, operating agreements to really structure that approach, give each other the freedom to work alone when we need to, but structure an effective collaborative approach when that's the right thing to do.
So it's so multidimensional because you've got, you're also talking about leadership dynamics.
Yeah.
Who's talking a lot, who's not. You're talking, you've got me versus the team, group decision making, the difference between cooperation and collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah.
So lots of opportunity to pull out and debrief
Yeah.
at different levels, depending on what your goals are.
Yeah.
We do have a couple of questions
Great.
in the chat. Let's go through those and then we can come back and dig in any deeper that we need to. So Sherry's asked, do you work in a small group? So I'm not sure at what stage, Sherry, if you want to unmute and add to that question, feel free.
You bet. Hi, thank you. No, I'm referring to when you put the Legos out together, right? Mix those. If you have a large group, let's say 20 to 30, do you
Right.
divide those up into smaller groups?
Yes, yes. Good, right. Good question. I'm skipping over a lot of the practical, logistical aspects. So the smallest group is three. If you're two, then you're really just stuck at cooperation.
Right.
A group of three can experience it. The ideal is 5 to 6, so a table group of 5 or 6 participants, and then you just multiply beyond that for larger organizations. And then, of course, the more people, you need to have a bell to get everyone to step. Once it gets going, it's like a free the first, and that's what's so noticeable. That first round is silence in a ballroom of 200 people, just silent, and then the clicking of the Legos. When they're collaborating, it's a free for all. And the biggest complaint is we didn't have enough time. We didn't have enough time. We were just building our thing, and you can walk around. It's really fun. You walk around with a camera and then screen share the projects, even real time. But like with the final review, if you have more table groups than you can hear from, then you can at least everyone can see the projects. Like as you move a camera around, you say, "Here's what table one made. What did you do?" And table three, and they can see them on the screen. So yeah, you break a larger group into table groups for sure.
And so you might have like, you know, 5 or 6 collaborating. I also want to say, and I see Maura has a question also, that the Lego pieces come in a pack of like when we get them from the Lego people, there's like 8 different color sets, color combinations.
Okay.
So there's browns, there's blacks, there's pink, purple, there's green, yellow, blue, white, or white is separate. So when we package them, if you were to get one set of 3, we're going to make sure that you have, 3 different Lego sets so that you can make that happen. If you get 2 sets, we're going to make sure that you have 6 different colors. Once you get up to, 8 or 9 players, there might be like, 2 people might have browns, or 2 people might have whites, or 2 people might have similar. So, you just want to make sure also as you set them at the table that you divide them, because that collaboration of seeing people come together and add color, that visual impact is what you're going for.
Yeah. Yeah. That final product where you can see that each person's contribution is visibly represented. Because when you look at this picture, we just see a Lego creation. But what I see is I had the green and yellow, and Sue had the blue, and Renee had the white Lego. And now we're looking at all of our inputs and how we all helped construct this and contribute to this. That's the point.
Pam, I'm not sure I'm going to understand your question
Well,
correctly.
Sue, if I can go back, Moira had the question about how many people do you find are able to contribute in a way that allows for all voices to be heard. You've done this before, Moira.
No,
Hold
I
on,
love
unmute,
this.
Maura.
I'm learning. This is so creative. I've done with team dynamics,
Yeah,
the
oh
norming
yeah,
and the storming. And so I was like, oh, I wonder what he found. And then
yeah.
you answered it can be 3, but
Here-
the ideal is 5 or 6. But is that like the ideal of 5 or 6 will allow for everyone to contribute and then this amazing outcome?
And
Or
I'll tell you, this gets deep very quickly. If those of you
yeah, it's
really
interesting.
know, you immediately see dominant personalities, receiving
Yes.
personalities, extroversion, introversion. But it's not as simple as extrovert, introvert. That's the thing. But that dominant personality who just like has the idea and they just keep driving it into the conversation. And meanwhile, Laels has an idea, but she just is receding because I'm overwhelming. And how far to go with that as the facilitator? What's the intent here?
Yeah.
That's something you want to think about in advance because it's going to emerge right away. I can, I mean, we can all go down this rabbit hole for ages, I'm sure. If it's a mixed cohort, like in a leadership program, hey,
Yes.
that's fair game. So, Maura, I noticed you were really contributing a lot of ideas. Maura, did you hear anything from Lael? And then the group's like, oh yeah, I didn't really hear what Lael had an idea. Lael, what was your initial idea? Well, nobody listened. You can gently but firmly kind of bring up those dynamics. In an
Yeah.
intact team, that much more sensitive because Moira is Lael's manager or their colleague, and you got to be a little more careful about Moira, you're overwhelming Lael, like how do you elicit this? But the short answer to your question, how many people are able to collaborate in a way that allows for all voices to be heard? The answer to that question is less than they think.
I wondered. Okay, I love that
And if
you.
we're collaborative, oh, we're all wonderfully collaborative until it's game time.
Yes. Okay.
I want to
Amazing.
thank you. I see we have questions from a few people, but I want to go to Pam's question first and just do a quick screen share of what is in the product. So just so that you can see. So it includes, you're going to get a pile, three, the basic set for 289.95 consists of three piles of Legos that are separately colored,
Bags, yeah.
four people, and a bunch of wheel parts. Here's an example of somebody who just got white. This person just got blues. This person just got greens. And again, these are just like some examples that we created here. Along with this, what's included is a set of facilitator notes, which are sent by email, three participant workbooks, three bags of Lego colors, and three paper dividers. So that's what's in the set. So if you need it for 6 people, you're getting 2 sets. For 9 people, yada, yada, you can do the math. Renee, I think you had your hand up next, and I know Mary and Nora, you also are in queue. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that we're not cutting off John because John, I have been doing Lego play literally for over 10 years.
Yeah.
Not as organized as this, but I used it for Agile. I used it
Oh,
for Lean.
yeah.
And so one of my questions, number one, I celebrate this so much because I'm going to say it very loosely, and I do not mean to offend anybody, but Legos are not used in the US like they are in Europe.
Oh,
Okay, because Lego Serious Play, which I'm almost certified in, but they just had their big conference in London.
yeah.
Literally, it just happened a couple days ago, and I would like to ask without offending anybody because I love this. I didn't know that you were out there.
Yeah.
Is there a major difference? And seeing the color differences, which is not in serious play, um, but what's the major difference in your
Oh,
mind?
yeah. So I would say the most significant thing is simply the process distinction. Anybody could do that, and you could use anything to do it. Legos just happen to be super tactile and super effective. So the distinction between isolation, working alone with the barrier, that's a physical experience, cooperating, and then physically experiencing the collaboration, which happens in a lot of settings. But that distinction is unusual. And then the second distinction is you get your Legos, and this is your set, and those colors and those resources, and that's where you start. And we quickly get attached to our Legos, and that's my cut. And now the choice to collaborate and share my Legos. Somebody put a question in, can you move and place and pieces and touch pieces that aren't your own? Great question. That's an operating agreement, isn't it? And I start reaching over the table to grab Pam's Legos. She's like, hey, back off. Those are my Lego. Like, well, I thought we were collaborating. Not that much. Right? And so literally, like each step is it bringing that to the surface. So again, subtle but not subtle distinction is you get your own set and your own color, and then you watch as those intersperse and start to become a collaborative product.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I love what you're doing. I applaud.
And Renee, thank you. Renee, perhaps after in our second half hour, when sort of this stops, we can get some more insight from you on some of the other Lego
Oh,
Serious Play. I added a couple of links in the chat to other Lego tools that we have that were developed by a Lego Serious Play person.
Love it.
Nikki, and I'm blanking, Nikki, on your last name if you're here. Um, uh, in any case, so let's come back to that. Mary, I know you have a question, please.
Yes, hi, thanks for this. And sorry, I'm not coming on camera for the moment. I have done something kind of similar. It's not with Legos, and it's a team building exercise. It's more competitive, and it just takes a good hour and a half to 2 hours to do it. How elastic is the time on this? And can you expand it? Can you contract it? Can it be a little bit more icebreakery? Something like that. Over.
yeah. Yeah, great question. Yes, clearly you can. I will tell you, people, they get into it, they really get into it. And there's an ownership and there's a sense of like, my ideas are starting to flow. And now you've got me building something and now you're ringing a bell. And I mean, people like really, there's some folks in the room who are like, what do you mean? You just told me to what? And there's like an agitation that you're cutting me off. And I just started to build this cool thing that I'm starting to fall in love. And like, so I hear you and I feel your pain and I'm so sorry to interrupt. Capture that feeling. That's what it feels like when you're in the flow. And then all of a sudden, right, Cynthia calls and she needs this thing. I'm like, Cynthia, I'm in the middle of this really cool thing I'm working on and you're interrupting. It's like, Cynthia doesn't know why I'm so upset. So in the icebreaker, like the 30-minute model is very like, okay, I warn them up front. It's gonna feel fast. It's gonna be quick, but dive in. And then there's the stop start. You tell me to do it. Now you're ringing the bell. Now we're cooperating. Now we got to stop that. Now we're going to collaborate and you want us to build something and we didn't have enough time. We didn't have enough. That's, welcome to real life. It almost always feels like we didn't have enough time. And so debriefing that as part of it. So yes, it's elastic. On the short end, it's setting it up as fast and quick. On the long end, it's really giving them permission to dive in, to build it, to debrief what they created. Okay, now let's talk about the parallels to real life. And where do we appreciate isolation and what does that look like? Office hours, closed door time. When people work remotely, is that a good thing or does that create unwanted isolation? Right? There's positive isolation and negative isolation in that whole conversation, et cetera.
Which gets to the point that you started off with, John, where you were talking about making it intentional collaboration, right?
Yeah, right.
When do you want to cooperate? When do you want to work independently? When do you want to collaborate?
The culminating product in that, especially in the longer conversation, is operating agreements, norms, ground rules, however you want to call it, but operating agreements. How are we going to collaborate? To what extent? What platform? What mechanisms? What does it really mean to share resources? How far does that really go? And that's great. Let's talk about it in advance so we don't end up in frustration. Because I think I can reach across and start grabbing Sarah's Legos, and she's like, no, 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 no. I'll share what I choose to share, but those other ones, those are mine. Okay. Like, let's agree on in advance, etc. That's the actual product.
Excellent. And I shared your sample agendas. No, I didn't share the agendas, just so folks could see in your instructions, you have a 4-hour, a 2-hour, a 30-minute, and a 6-hour. So you break it up. I know we're hitting the half an hour mark. I want to dig in deeper and answer more questions for those who have to run. Thank you for being